Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today for our Monday Healing Steps Facebook Live in the Bridge to Healing community. And if you're watching the replay, go ahead and drop a pound replay in the comments. And if you're here with me live, just say hello and type pound live. I'd love to know where you're joining me from today. So, for those who are new or tuning in for the first time, I'm Janine Naus, your grief and trauma relief specialist. And I combine my personal experience and professional knowledge to support you on your healing journey. So today, we're going to talk about a struggle that can feel so discouraging and lonely. What happens when you finally open up about your pain and the person you're talking to turns the conversation into something about them? Now, it's something so many trauma survivors experience, and it can leave you feeling unseen, dismissed, or emotionally unsafe. So let's talk about why this happens and how it impacts you and what you can do to protect your peace without shutting down or pushing people away. So, why it feels so hard to be heard? We're going to begin here because it's a feeling that's all too familiar for so many trauma survivors. When you finally gather the courage to open up and you don't feel truly heard. When we share something painful, what we're really looking for is connection, not solutions, not comparisons, just space to be seen, heard, and held. But often, friends or family members respond in ways that redirect the conversation. Maybe they say, I went through something like that, or, you know what worked for me? And they mean well, but what you feel is unseen. And instead of presence, you feel pressure. And that pressure can be especially intense if you have a history of trauma, because you may already carry the weight of feeling like your pain is too much or that you're a burden. So when someone can't hold space, it reinforces the belief my needs don't matter. And it often leads to emotional disconnection. And it might look like a subtle shift in the conversation, but to someone already struggling to speak their truth, it can feel like a wall going up. You might begin to wonder, what's the point in sharing if I always leave the conversation feeling worse? And that's heartbreaking because healing requires safe, supportive connection, not more silence and shame. And sometimes just preparing to share something vulnerable brings up a storm of emotion and fear. Fear that's confirmed when the person you trusted redirects the conversation. And this fear makes it harder to open up the next time, reinforcing isolation. So, this is why so many trauma survivors retreat after opening up. It doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable when your experience isn't being honored. So I have a reflection here. I'd like for you to take a moment and check in with yourself. Have you ever left a conversation feeling more alone than before you started speaking? If so, and if you feel comfortable, drop a yes or a heart in the comments. I just want you to know you're not alone and your experience is valid. And maybe you've wondered why it keeps happening, why people so often shift the focus away from your pain when you just need to be heard. So let's take a closer look at that, particularly when conversations become about them. So, why does this happen? Why do some people turn the conversation back to themselves? Often it's anxiety. Your pain might trigger something in them they haven't faced or don't know how to hold. And they may be trying to connect with you through similarity, but end up centering themselves instead. And others may feel uncomfortable with silence or emotional intensity and try to fix it by giving advice or redirecting or even lightening the mood. And their intentions may be good, but their response can leave you feeling abandoned or invisible in your own story. But for someone in the middle of trauma or grief, those responses can feel deeply invalidating. And it's like handing someone a map when they really just need a hand to hold. And here's the hard part. We often make excuses for this behavior because we know the person cares. But caring isn't always the same as being capable of support. You might start doubting your needs, thinking you're asking for too much, but you're not. You're asking to be treated with care, with empathy, with presence. It's important to remember that most people don't do this to be hurtful. They're doing the best that they can, but they may not have the awareness or tools to respond in the ways we truly need. And sometimes people who genuinely love us still have their own unresolved pain. And they may not have the tools or the capacity to hold space for ours. So instead of staying with us in our emotions, they unconsciously shift the focus to protect themselves from the discomfort. Understanding this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it can help us stop internalizing it. It reminds us their response is more about their limits, not their worth. So I'd love to invite you into a bit of reflection here. I want you to take a moment to journal or just simply sit with this question. What do I wish someone would say when I'm hurting? What kind of response helps me feel safe and seen? Now, you might write about a time when someone really was there for you and what they said, or how they even showed up for you. Or maybe you'll realize you've never experienced that, and this is your first time imagining what it would feel like. So either way, this is your space to begin. So let this be your practice in honoring what you need and what your heart is asking for. Now let's talk about how you can protect your energy while still showing up for the relationships that matter. So here's something simple but powerful, and you can start practicing this right away. It's a few ways you can respond that honor both your healing and the relationship. So you can say things like, I don't need advice right now. I just need someone to sit with me. Now here's another one. I'm not ready for solutions. I just want to feel heard. And then here's another. This is really tender. Are you in a space to just listen with me for a minute? Now, these kinds of statements set a boundary with care, and they don't accuse, but they do create clarity. And you might feel nervous saying these things, especially if you're used to minimizing your needs. But the more you practice, the more empowered and safe it will begin to feel. You're not asking for perfection, you're asking for presence. And sometimes the most powerful boundary is simply naming what you need in that moment. Also, check in with yourself after difficult conversations. You might want to ask, do I feel more connected or more drained? Do I feel honored or dismissed? And your answers will guide you in recognizing who is emotionally safe to talk to and who may not have the capacity yet. See, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is invite people into a deeper way of relating. We give them a chance to show up differently. And because when we protect our energy, we're also modeling something powerful, how to create relationships that are rooted in respect and safety. So let me share a moment from my own experience that helped me understand this more clearly. Now, I remember opening up to someone I trusted about a particularly painful moment in my healing journey. I was vulnerable, raw, and finally speaking something I had held in for a long time. And their first response was, yeah, that reminds me of when and in that moment, I felt myself disappear. I know they cared. I really believed that. But what I needed wasn't a comparison, it was companionship. What I needed was someone to say, that sounds really hard. I'm here with you. It reminded me how often we respond from our own discomfort or desire to connect without realizing we've just taken up space someone else was trying to open. To be honest, I've done this too. So there were times when someone shared their pain with me, and I found myself jumping in with my own story, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how else to respond. And I remember sensing their shift. their withdrawal and wondering if I had done something wrong. And it wasn't until I began my trauma-informed certification training that I realized what had happened and how common it really is. See, that awareness changed the way I show up for others and for myself. And that moment didn't just leave a bruise, it taught me something, that presence is more healing than performance, that I can gently ask for what I need, and that I can honor my own experience even if someone else can't meet me there. And when we learn that, we stop abandoning ourselves in conversations and we stay rooted, we stay whole. And if you've ever had a moment like this where someone missed the chance to truly be there for you, just know your experience is valid and your voice deserves space. So let's move into a few final thoughts to bring this all together. You deserve to be heard. You deserve spaces where your pain is not minimized, compared, or redirected. And you can create those spaces with others and within yourself. But when we learn to protect our energy, communicate our needs, and set boundaries from a place of self-respect and clarity, we don't just change our experience, we change the way others learn to relate to us too. Now, you are not too much. Your pain is not a burden, and your voice matters. If this message resonated with you and you're ready to explore how to set boundaries, protect your energy, and feel more supported on your healing path, I'd love to talk with you. And you can book a healing connection. It's a no-fee clarity call with me. It's a safe, heart-centered 30-minute conversation where you'll feel seen, supported, and guided toward one gentle next step in your healing. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And if you haven't already, make sure you're a part of the Bridge to Healing community so you can keep receiving support. Or if you know others who could use this kind of support, please pass along the link to the group. And I want to say take care, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.